Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. All right, so I'm going to take you through a couple of key themes that we've been seeing throughout 2020. I mean, the general idea has been a roller coaster. I've heard this a lot today through the other presenters, but the key theme is acceleration. We're not really seeing any new trends in home video. Well, there's been a few things like testing premium video on demand, but generally the key theme has been a very large acceleration of the trends that had been shaping up at the earlier part of the year. The three ones we're going to talk about today is capturing and largely retaining viewer attention. There's been a large desire for home entertainment. It's been driving viewership gains. It's been accelerating the migration to streaming. And we want to put some numbers around what we've been seeing, talk a little bit about what it means going forward. The second topic area is about fostering sign-up, maximizing engagement. The key thing here is content. It's always been king. It remains king. It has to deliver value. We've seen, some of the ways it can deliver value is through nostalgia, through comfort. The other one we'll talk a little bit more about today is exclusivity. The last concept is the great rebundling. My colleague Steve Baker has been talking about the rebundling of video services from the beginning of the unbundling. We're actually starting to see a bit of a rebundling right now. But the most common SVOD bundle, it includes Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, but within a couple months' time, it's grown to include Disney Plus as well. We'll talk about free streaming, transactional video on demand. It's become a very, very strong supplement of the subscription business. So to go through these concepts, what we thought we'd do is 12 things that you need to know about these topics. We're going to do this in 12 slides today in probably about 12 minutes so that we keep the pacing moving pretty quick. The TVs became essential during COVID-19. We know that it's been a challenging environment. It's been a challenging time. We all know about like the true essentials that we've needed throughout this. But what we're really seeing in the home entertainment space is the need for television and need for home entertainment has surfaced. It's surfaced because we all need to keep from losing our marbles during these challenging times. But let's put some data behind it. Through our retail tracking service, this is looking week to week, year-over-year TV sales from, a couple weeks before the pandemic began. That's what you're seeing in that box on the far left. And then how it's shaped up during all of the time since then. Generally, TV sales have been up very significantly. The one bar that's not labeled, April week 2, there was 87% year-over-year unit sales for TV growth. I'm not sure that's ever happened in any point in time before, but we're seeing anywhere from 16 to 60% growth in an average week. Sometimes it's tapering backwards a little bit because there's a bit of a draw on the supply, but generally the growth has been in around the 30, 40, 50% range. We can talk some about the details. It was gaming earlier on in the pandemic. The attachment of streaming media players such as a Roku, DVD player sales actually hit positive territory for a while, as well as Blu-ray player attachment. There was home office needs, folks like us, buying 30, 40-inch monitors for the home office, and a little bit of pulled forward purchasing. But if we really dig in here, the key thing that we're seeing is consumers have a very strong desire for television and entertainment, and that has not slowed down yet. Stay-at-home orders, they didn't just accelerate viewers' interest in television, they've accelerated the migration to streaming video. So this is the same exact chart we looked at a minute ago. Streaming media player year-over-year sales growth. And again, we're seeing almost identical findings in terms of the level and the sheer magnitude of growth in sales compared to a year ago. In large part, this is being driven by Roku. We heard talk earlier about Roku, where we're seeing, upwards of 80% surge in streaming back in April. That's no surprise when you look at, some of the growth in the hardware base itself as well. So at the end of the day, what this all brings us to is content consumption is really hitting a peak. And I wanted to bring you through a couple of the statistics that really help illustrate this. So everything we're talking about in this chart, it's digital video growth Q2 2020, and how does it compare versus a year ago? To talk about the free streaming space, I thought I'd highlight a stat that Viacom CBS had about Pluto TV, their advertising supported service or free streaming linear service, and that's hit 26.5 million domestic monthly active users. I think a lot more important than the actual user number is the growth number. That's 61% year-over-year growth. In general, we're seeing this level across a lot of the free streaming services that are out there. It's not just about consumers getting free, though. The transactional side of the business, electronic sell-through, so people like us buying a movie that we want to continue to own it, is seeing 57% year-over-year growth in sales. And on a rental side, video on demand is looking at 50% growth year-over-year. If we break that down just to the internet component, renting a movie on a service like Amazon, it's up 76%. And spending on subscription video is up 42% year-over-year. This may be the last time ever we'll get to look at a chart with this magnitude of growth across just about every way in which you can consume video. Which brings us to the mission. It's the mission for the rest of this year, the mission for next year, which is, what are the key pillars to retaining this audience that's rediscovered home video in a manner which is never really seen before. So we'll dig a little bit into the content trends, talk some about the specific services so we can help illustrate some of what's been driving these gains. The key theme to keep in mind is the services that have been used the most, they're showing the biggest gains over time. So these are the top most frequently used subscription video on demand services. We're defining this in terms of just weekly average usage. So a service like Netflix is seeing about 87% of their subscribers use it at least every week. And that green line you're seeing running throughout are the percentage of viewers that are saying, I'm actually using this service more often than I did before. And basically what we're seeing across over 40 subscription video on demand services that we've been tracking is that the ones with the highest level of engagement, the highest level of weekly engagement, they're actually seeing the greatest gains during the last couple of months as well. I pulled out one highlight for Netflix. They've been reported to have spent $15 billion on content in 2019. It's estimated that could grow by as much as 20% during 2020. And it's that level of programming that's really keep the viewer base engaged. The story is not the same across the board for everyone. Disney hasn't had the same level of near-term expenditure in programming, but they threw a vault at consumers with such a broad base of catalog programming that is appealing to a very wide spanning demographic audience, that we've seen a similar level of success for them as well. So let's dig a little bit more into the Disney Plus success. Well, we said, what are the top 10 reasons why folks subscribed or why you're using it more than you had been previously? And the key themes here are really straightforward. It's about programming. Right? Disney Plus has the movies that the viewers using it want to watch. And if you look at that fourth bar, the one that's rated at 30% of people citing it, it's not just that they have the movies, they have content that the viewers recognizes. We just can't get this some other way. So it's that exclusivity, affordability, and for Disney, the lack of advertising that's really drawing the base in to engage with the service and continue to use it more. Now, this isn't just a Disney story. It was a good example because of how the company was successful in growing the base. But honestly, content is king is something I've been talking about for almost 20 years in this industry. That concept is more true today than it ever was before. So this chart here looks at the percentage of people that subscribe or are actually using the service more often than they were before, simply because they recognize the content that's there on the service. It's just not available to them in some other fashion. So that's that same 30% number we were seeing for Disney in the second bar, but it isn't just the major services that are seeing this kind of thing. There's a lot of other very successful services like PBS Masterpiece, where the viewer base recognizes that the programming being delivered to them through this service is something that's unique, it's exclusive, it's valuable to them, and that alone is driving subscriptions and it's driving engagement, which is minimizing churn for the base. So let's talk a little bit about free ad-supported services. This could be a linear service, it could be an on-demand service. Really what we're seeing here is it's become a very strong supplement to the other ways in which viewers have been watching television. It's not standing alone. If you look at that red bar there, free streaming video accounts for 4% of people that are engaging in this manner. 44% just have a subscription service. 35% they're leveraging both subscription and free streaming, and very few people are using neither of these. Actually, as you look at the younger customer base, age 18 to 34, just about all of them are engaged in digital video, either free streaming or subscription streaming in some way, shape, or form. But really, this chart underscores the importance of how these services supplement each other and the value that people are seeing between both of them. Not everybody's created equally, and to talk a little bit about, content being king, the value of exclusive programming, the value of procuring programming, curating it and delivering it to viewers in a way that can really be consumed in a nice manner. What we're seeing is that Pluto TV and a Roku channel, two platforms that we've talked a lot about throughout this conference today, they're seeing the greatest percent of their user base that's actually engaged on a weekly basis. Now, if you put this in context, 87% of the Netflix user base is using it every week. We're not seeing that level of magnitude from a free service. Free is seen more as that lean back supplemental experience to the on-demand programming viewers are getting through their subscriptions. But this really underscores the value of procuring that programming, curating it, and delivering it to viewers in a way in which they're, finding it easy to consume. I want to talk about this concept of the prowess of free. One of the things we've been doing with our research is understanding churn. We think it's a really important issue going into this decade because as viewers are leveraging more and more services, we continue to talk about when does fatigue set in. We're not really seeing any strong signs of fatigue yet, but you would think, with free services seeing that lower level of engagement than subscription services, the churn levels, they might just be higher. So the way you read the data here is that red bar. The norm, that's all 79 TV services we measure. That's everything from a cable or satellite TV subscription to Netflix, Apple TV Plus, HBO Max, and so forth. And what we're noting is that among people who subscribe to or use any of these, on average, they're saying we're probably going to churn out of 8% of the services that we have right now. Now, the gold bars here, that represents all of the free streaming services that we've been measuring. And the key message is pretty clear. Every single one of them are seeing a lower potential churn rate than we are for the normative point across the board. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, right? You're not subscribing, you don't have to make an ongoing commitment, but still we're talking to people about stopping using it. And what we're seeing is that they're not intending to. We heard you talk about Tubi earlier saying that, the key thing right now is that engagement has been strong, but not only has engagement been strong, that you were seeing a lot of return viewers. We're seeing the same thing in our data for free streaming as well. And if you set aside, some of the top reasons for churn, too many ads, well, that's why we're getting it for free as viewers. The key message also becomes clear when a viewer feels they can get the content some other way. When they feel like another service offers better content, that's where the risk comes into play. That's when they're thinking about bailing on that particular service and potentially jumping to something else. Again, it all underscores the message that if you want to minimize churn, maximize viewer engagement, making sure that you have the right programming, curate that mix, and to the extent possible, have exclusive programming is really going to keep viewers engaged. So just a couple more charts for us today. We want to talk about that dream bundle, right? What is the average bundle that consumers have? Roughly, if you have free or subscription services, you have about 6, generally 4 subscription, 2 or 3 free ad-supported services. And that bundle really looks like a mix of Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney Plus, Roku channel, Pluto TV, and YouTube, the ones viewers are most engaged with. So what we did is we looked at those 4 common subscription video on demand channels and said, well, what is the most common bundle? And what we see is that, most common is having Netflix and Amazon. 14% of people have that mix. I happen to think that's the second most important data point on this chart, that third bar, the 9%, the people that have all 4 is the most important thing to consider, especially when you look at the younger audience, age 18 to 34, that is the #1 bundle amongst that customer base. They're likely to have everything and be adding on more, which is suggesting to us that fatigue that we're concerned about, it's not here right now, but we really have to manage for that when it comes down the road in the near future. So to sum up today, change is the new norm. What we're seeing here, if we look on the left, 42% of people are saying in the next year, we're looking into signing up for or starting something new. In contrast, we're only seeing 29% of people saying we're looking to bail on something that we have. This again just underscores that we're at that peak. We're at that point in time where consumers are still looking for the programming they want. They're picking and choosing the services that they're going to stick with. Making sure that we're delivering on a content promise is the most critical thing that can be done to ensure that we retain that audience going into the future. Thanks so much for the time today, guys. Eric will let us know if we have time for questions, but I'm always here if you want to reach out.